How do you give notes to an actor that make a difference? I'm going to assume in this section that you're beginning your journey with actors on your film and you're auditioning performers. However, the information should be useful throughout the processes of both rehearsal and shooting. The important thing to avoid is lots of talk and no improvement to the performance. Have you ever experienced this when giving direction to an actor? There's lots of healthy talk, lots of nodding in agreement between you and the actor, lots of discussion about background and psychology of the character portrayed, and then the actor repeats the performance, but it's still not what you were looking for. In fact, it doesn't seem very different at all, despite the fact that you feel you've articulated your directions ad nauseum. I think anyone who's worked with actors can probably identify with this. I certainly do. And the reason this happens is often because you're not giving the right sort of notes. Notes which speak directly to the faculties and processes which an actor uses to create a performance. And the result of this is that you keep searching and looking for an actor who comes into the audition room and gets it nailed first time, and you cast that person. Well, that's always a great thing when it happens, but I think you want to improve the odds because you might be dismissing many talented performers who just require the correct direction. Talking about the character and the character's background is vital, but you're going to need to talk more directly to the motor inside the actor if you want to make a real difference. Okay, so let's talk about how you give notes that make a real difference. In doing so, I'm going to continue focusing on the audition process. Let's say the actor's about to perform a first read for you. Okay, watch the scene closely. I do this by combining glances to my monitor at close-up moments and others with watching the scene live. The camera's active, so I can watch the performance on a monitor, but it's not necessarily recording. Say, for example, you're auditioning a male actor and the scene's a two-hander between this man and a woman in some form of relationship crisis. Okay, you've seen the performance. Ask yourself, what do I get from this actor's performance? The actor's performed the scene and it's very clear that he's resentful towards the female character. Okay, is he more resentful than I want? Is resentment the correct choice for this scene? If it is, then this aspect of the actor's interpretation of the character is correct. It's heading in the right direction. And you only need to consider whether there is a need to adjust the performance by degrees. If resentment is not what you're seeking, then you'll need to talk about interpretation in your notes to the actor. It sounds simple. It can be if you focus on dissecting the performance in this way. In this resentment example, we now have a perfect basis upon which to begin giving notes to the actor. So firstly, identify and tell the actor what you get and understand from their performance. And you do this by responding emotionally to the performance. Identify one or more of the choices the actor has made in their interpretation. You might say, oh wow, he's very resentful. I can see he's hiding a lot from this woman. You see, you want the actor to know that you understand their interpretation and what they're trying to communicate, even if it may not be ultimately what you want. If you respond in this way, the actor's immediately engaged with you and you have their attention. The lesson here is this. If you happen to disagree with a choice made by an actor, you're far better served by discussing and sharing the emotion of the interpretation the actor first presented before beginning to redirect the actor with other direction. Okay, so now some brief discussion may ensue between you and the actor, and you can give notes which inform the actor whether they're heading in the right direction. You're doing everybody a favor by being very candid here, but thoughtful in your well-chosen remarks. Let's try and summarize this. You want to avoid dismantling the actor by opening with negative remarks about what you didn't like, but neither do you wish to be enthusiastic about things which you clearly don't want. So firstly, talk about the performance which was offered. The actor now feels that the work he did and his interpretation was felt. It's not about stroking or coddling the actor's ego. It's just simple human logic about working with others in our species. And this approach will engender mutual respect, confidence in the actor, and a willingness to oblige you with whatever else you might want the actor to try. If you happen to agree with the basic thrust of the actor's interpretation, in this example, resentment, then after your initial feedback, you can confidently move on to discussing degrees of resentment. If you do not agree with his choice of resentment, then you can invite the actor to try a different interpretation. You could say, well, I agree that there's a lot this character's hiding from this woman, but I think he's truly a lot fonder of her than what you're playing. I don't think, in fact, he does resent her. And the reason for this is A, B, C, and D, etc., etc. Now, only you'll know how to justify your remarks, because this has got to be based on your understanding of your own characters. So you'll need to back up your notes by referring to the text itself, the subtext of which the actor may not be aware. Maybe you might want to provide the actor with a snapshot of your vision for the scene and its purpose and its contribution to the story. Quickly, of course, because you've only got minutes with each auditionee. If you articulate your ideas in this way, you'll find the actors have very little investment in arguing with you. They're looking for a good result for you both. And nothing is permanent here in the audition room. There's very little reason why the actor won't give your way a go with real commitment, because he already feels he has your respect. Actors put things in the bank. In our example, you've told the actor what he can bank. Ah, this man's hiding something from this woman. He's being very secretive about ... Banking is a term I use to identify what's good, what works, and what I want the actor to retain. In this way, I can move on to discussing other aspects of the character and interpretation which add rather than conflate and confuse the actor. These are the elements of the performance which are solid. So the basis of giving good notes is not just about being of one mind with the actor, because this is far too general. Words like more this or not like that may result in a lot of agreement and nodding, but ultimately the actors are puzzled and confounded about what it is that they're doing which is not right for you. Of course, there are many aspects to any character. In my example, resentment is probably only one aspect to this character's personality. You'll dissect other aspects of the character and assess and give notes in a similar way, banking those things that work and adjusting others. Now that you've shaped the scene and agreed an interpretation with the actor, you can move on to looking at another read of the scene, perhaps a videotaping this time. This and subsequent reads may now prompt notes regarding the actual mechanics of how the scene works. I'll talk more about the mechanics of scenes in a moment. Let the actors do the acting and we do the directing. Resist the temptation to micromanage the scene by telling the actor how to perform stuff. What do I mean by this? I mean, resist the obvious temptation to refer to particular readings of lines, how they're said, etc. Don't rabbit on about the way particular parts of the scene should be played or how individual lines should be read and what emotion should be attached to them. Actors simply don't work this way. The reading of lines is the result of the overall interpretation of the emotional fabric of the character. You can't work from the outside simply telling them what you want them to look and sound like. That's far too prescriptive. Let the actor find the correct emotion, behavior, and dialogue based on your more overarching and global notes. You'll get what you want a lot easier, and it will be a lot more real because you'll be speaking to the instrument of the actor. When you do this, minor details will be ironed out quickly. The words and the dialogue will all start to sound right. The emotion of the scene will begin to take a solid shape. So these audition techniques, they're only a small part of your skill set in respect of directing actors. It's just the beginning of a shorthand process towards steering the performance to a final and successful result. They may differ somewhat in their brevity from the ways you'll be intensively directing actors later in rehearsals, because then you'll have more time to explore. but you'll have even less time to explore when you're on set. So these are important skills to put to use at this stage. What are some of the other kind of notes you can give an actor after a first read? Well, you can talk more about the mechanics of the scene. What are the things involved in the mechanics of the scene? Well, there's the tone of the scene, or the mood. Is it somber, agitated, discreet, foreboding, intimate, etc.? The rhythm of the scene, or how the scene builds to a climax and where it climaxes, how it relaxes or subsides. The pace of a scene. What about the overall length? Is it playing too slow? Does it require less reflection and more rapid exchanges, etc.? Many of these mechanics can be dealt with at audition by simple direction and notes like louder, softer, slower, faster, if you wish. I'm going to examine and talk about all of these aspects of performance in similar ways in future lectures using examples like I did here. Remember, you've only got 20 minutes to determine the best this actor might offer you if you cast them in your film. And it might be impractical to talk at length about the background of the character, etc. If you've set up the audition correctly in your briefs which you've sent out to actors, you can assume the actors know all these basics before they enter the room. So don't waste time reiterating this stuff and then end up playing the scene again and again with little improvement. Here's a technique that works for me because it's a fast and shorthand method of achieving some of your goals in a limited time. Okay, as an example, say you see a particular role played with aggression, and after a first or second read, you want the actor to be more aggressive. Now, words like more or not so much are very general in nature. How much more, an actor might well wonder. I found it can be a useful shorthand to arithmetize this. I might say, well, if 10 on the Richter scale is how aggressive I see this scene needs to be played, I think you're hovering around 4. You see, now the concept of more is very clearly indicated to the actor in terms of how much more you're seeking. Okay, the second time they do it, I might say, well, that's certainly closer to what I'm looking for, but I still think you're only at about 8. Now, I'm not suggesting that working with actors is distilled to a dispassionate numbers exercise in this way. It's just one of the many useful shorthand tools to get a glimpse in 20 minutes of what you're going to do in a long journey once you engage with this actor. The second and subsequent reads. Okay, there's probably been 2 or 3 minutes discussion since the actor performed the first read. You've given various notes, and so now the actor does another read. There exists a set of objectives based on what worked and what didn't work for you. And you'll video some of the subsequent performances, and you will continue to give the actor brief and thoughtful notes along some of the lines we've discussed. If these don't substantially move the performance forward in a positive direction, well, it's either because this actor is not the right actor for the role, or maybe it's because your notes suck. Either way, you and the actor both lose. You may now be including a few basic blocking directions among your notes, which may sketch some of the basic movement you see in the scene. And this the actor will also need to accommodate. This is more information for the actor to absorb and process, so allow the actor to become familiar with the moves before you move to your final performance. It's generally good policy to give the actor at least 2 goes on camera, because switching on the camera changes everything. Once an actor is cast and locked in, assuming I have reviewed and reflected on all things that the actor did at that audition, I'll contact the actor and I'll recap all that I liked about the audition, because I want him to put that in the bank. And I might discuss areas where I'd like to do more work and any other issues for the actor to think about before we next meet.